on SciFi Friday.
With this next story, modern-day ghost chasers and long-dead war heroes give new meaning to the term fighting spirit. In 1942, an American aircraft carrier was severely damaged by Japanese gunfire. Now, nearly 6 decades later, her ghostly crew won't give up the ship. A series of haunting encounters seems to prove that the men of the USS Hornet are still manning their battle stations.
Some people have walked through here and actually felt an entity or a being walk right through them.
I saw a very large shadow go across the foot of my bed.
It seems like word has been sent out on the spiritual internet that this is the happening place for guys to come back here to retire to.
From time immemorial, man has clung steadfastly to the belief that the dead walk among us. Is it possible that the human soul survives death, taking the form of a ghost? According to believers of the paranormal, ghosts often lurk in places haunted by tragic events of the past. Here, poltergeists and other unearthly spirits are said to torment, and in some cases, physically attack the living. And some say the dead may simply be attending to unfinished business. This is the USS Hornet. According to credible accounts, the souls of dead heroes have made this aging warship their home.
I started to hear stories from our volunteers that were working around the ship of seeing shadows, of seeing shapes in the passageways.
Right over here on that middle catwalk where that door is, I saw a sailor leaning against the railings there, staring down at me while I was restoring the area in here.
All of a sudden I started feeling something tugging on my leg. And my first thought was, it's one of the other guys playing a joke on me here on the ship. And I got up, found my flashlight and turned it on, and there was nobody there, and there was no walking sound or anybody else around.
These supernatural visitors may have ties to the most brutal war the world has ever known. In April 1942, CV-8, an aircraft carrier designated USS Hornet, was the launch site for the famous Doolittle raid on Tokyo. 6 months later, the Hornet succumbed to enemy fire and plunged into the depths of the Pacific Ocean. 133 sailors lost their lives. But the spirit of the Hornet would live on, with the christening of a new ship, also named USS Hornet. In 1943, the new vessel, which was given the call sign Grey Ghost, embarked on an illustrious career, striking blow after blow against the enemy to avenge the deaths of those 133 sailors. A quarter century later, she enjoyed the honor of picking up the astronauts of Apollo 11. But in 1993, after more than a half century of distinguished service to her country, the USS Hornet's run of good luck came to an end. Obsolete and abandoned, she was offered to scrap metal dealers for a paltry $6 a ton.
We realized that she was such a national treasure that she really shouldn't be scrapped, so a group of people got together and started the Aircraft Carrier Hornet Foundation.
It was a monumental task, and as work progressed on the rusting Leviathan, many of the workers began to sense that they were sharing her with another presence. Rumors of ghosts began to circulate among the men restoring the old aircraft carrier. Had the long-deceased crew of the Hornet come back to help save their beloved ship?
I saw right in the compartment on the Admiral's Bridge in which we're standing right now, a gentleman with a long-sleeved khaki uniform going down the ladder. I don't know what to say about that, except that he turned over his shoulder and looked at me. So I went after him and went down the ladder and called after him. Couldn't find anybody.
I was at my file drawers, which are about 10, 12 feet away, and I'd opened the file drawer, and all at once I heard big band music being played in my office. And it's coming from my tape deck, and there's no buttons pushed in my tape deck.
Coming up, Ghostbusters scour the decks to identify the Phantom Commander of the Haunted Hornet.
On SciFi Friday.
This program contains images which may be disturbing to younger or sensitive viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
As preservationists attempted to restore the legendary USS Hornet to her former glory, they encountered entities that can only be described as otherworldly. Ghostly apparitions descended ladders, pinched female volunteers, and even appeared on the flight deck. In 1998, the aircraft carrier Hornet Foundation faced a critical decision. Deny all evidence of the supernatural, or confront the possibility that the ship was filled with ghosts. Concerned that the ship's ghostly inhabitants would frighten away tourists, the Foundation called in psychic Stash Murray and renowned paranormal investigator Loyd Auerbach. Auerbach, an expert witness and consultant for several law enforcement agencies, definitely believes the Hornet is haunted.
The other tri-field is spiking also.
Can feel it.
Quite a bit. When I first walked through the ship, I got sensations. We identified 28 different locations on the ship that were, you can consider hotspots. That's just kind of a euphemism for these are places where people had experiences more than once.
The room I wanted to.
Stash Murray claims to communicate telepathically with the Hornet's ghosts, including one who identified himself as the commanding officer.
When I came aboard the ship, I encountered several spirits and several ghosts. One of the first spirits that I encountered was Admiral J.J. Clark. He once served on the ship in 1944, and several folks have encountered him.
According to records previously unavailable to Stash Murray, J.J. Jocko Clark did serve aboard the Hornet. Other accounts indicate the late Admiral Clark, who was revered by his men for his loyalty and devotion, has appeared numerous times aboard the ship.
On a Saturday morning before the museum was open, and I was going below decks to our main control, which is an engine room. And as I unchained, I noticed that there was an officer walking on the deck right below, coming around to go down the ladder. And this was 4 or 5 seconds until I went out of view. And then I came around and looked down the ladder into the engine room, and there was no one there. And I can't explain it. I saw someone go down to that engine room.
Clark is not alone aboard the ship. Stash Murray speculates that the Admiral might be joined by some of the 133 sailors who perished on the original Hornet. Lost souls returned from the deep.
They came from the CV-8, which was the predecessor of the Hornet, which sunk and had a very tragic loss of many lives. I encountered also many of other folks that had been on this ship at one point or another.
It's a case where we have multiple witnesses citing multiple ghosts, which is very unusual. And it seems like there are more ghosts all the time. So we have an expanding situation. We'd have to say that everything corroborates, all the stories come together. And we've got, in this case, people. You might call them dead people, but they are ghosts, spirits, consciousness, personalities after death, whatever you want to call them, entities, who are here.
So why has a retired aircraft carrier become a favorite gathering place for dozens of ghosts?
What I have noticed on the ship are what I call returned spirits. Whether they died on the ship or in civilian life, they've come by choice specifically to help on a mission.
We think the ghosts are here to help the ship.
I think they come back because when they were on this ship, it was a very exciting time in their life. They were young, they were full of life.
Based upon the eyewitness accounts, it appears that the camaraderie of men in arms and the deadly drama of combat has turned the USS Hornet into a hub of supernatural events. Through more than 150 documented reports of ghostly events on board the Hornet, her former crew members have returned to immortalize both their love and devotion to a ship once known as the Gray Ghost. Next.